This is Amy Chan from CakeDecoratingSchool.com, and if you like cake decorating, you're in the right place. In this video, we'll be making a set of succulent cupcakes. It's broken down into steps so you can skip ahead, rewind, and rewatch as desired. We're going to get started making some colors for our succulents, and we're going to make a few shades of green, a nice pink, and we'll use some extra white as well. I'm using American style buttercream or simple buttercream, but you can use any kind of buttercream that you can pipe a flower with. And we're going to use the following liquid gel colors to make our various shades today: lemon yellow, coal black, royal blue, violet, and we're also going to use some neon bright pink and a little bit of red. To start with, I'm going to make kind of a nice like ice plant shade of green. I've got some of my royal blue, lemon yellow, and a little bit of my coal black out. And so I'm just going to start with a few specks of each, kind of about equal on the blue and yellow. And then just a tiny little touch of that black. And then we can adjust as needed. And here we have our finished color for our green. I added another round of my blue and yellow, and I just upped the amount of black. I added a little bit just to get that nice kind of slightly muted shade of kind of like ice green. Next up, we're going to make a darker kind of forest shade of green. So for this, we're going to need some drops. I'm going to start with a couple of drops of my royal. A little less on my yellow. And just one of my black. We're going to give it a mix and see if we need to adjust. And we gave ours just a little bit more yellow. We were a little too heavy on the blue, but you can see it has that nice, almost aqua-ish kind of vibe where it's leaning more towards blue than yellow. And we've added a little black that gives it that depth, and it gives us a nice shade of dark green that's going to develop even further. And for our final green, we're going to make something that's more like an olive shade. So we want 3 distinct greens. I'm going to start out with my blue and yellow. Maybe a little more yellow than blue this time. So we'll do the reverse of what we did for our forest. And then I'm going to add just a couple of touches of both black and red to help me get a nice kind of olive tone. So we're just going to give it a mix, see where we are, and adjust as needed. And here we have our color. I added just a few more rounds of my black and my red to it until I really liked the tone of the shade. So I'm looking for something that gives a little bit of that kind of army olive green color to it. It doesn't necessarily need to be too dark. We just want to make sure that it's vastly different from our other 2 greens. And our final color is going to be some pink, and we want to make a nice intense shade. So I've only got a little bit of frosting in there, but I'm going to start with some drops of my neon bright pink. There we go. One of my red, because that together should give me a nice magenta. And then I just want to make it a little bit kind of cool tone. So I'm just going to give myself some really light little specks of purple. And so here we have our color mixed around, and I like where it is. It's going to develop some as I give it time because we've got a lot of those shades like red and pink in there that really take a little time to reach their full potential. So I don't want to go too heavy on it, and this should finish as a nice bright pink. But if you give it a little bit and your color isn't quite where you want it to be, you can always adjust it again. We're going to use several bags today for our succulent cupcake project. Ours are all 12-inch disposable. You can use whatever you like at home. For our light ice green color, we've loaded all into a bag with a large petal tip. This one's a 127. If you don't have this, but you have a 125, that would work as well. We've loaded our army green color into a bag with a 104, and you can see we've put a single kind of small stripe of that pink color right at the top, so it's lined up with the skinny end of our tip. Our darker forest green color is in a bag with a number 21 tip. We're also using a little extra white And we have this in a bag with a number 1. If you don't have a number 1, another small tip like a 2 would work as well. And finally, we've got some of that nice bright pink in a bag all by itself, and this one will be using a number 16 star tip. It's time to review the techniques we're going to use for our different succulents today. And the first one is our Echeveria. And to do our mound, we're just going to use the same tip as we're using for our petals or lobes, or whatever we want to call the little leaves that are on these. But we're just going to hold it straight up and down, give it a wiggle back and forth, even rotate it around that center a little bit. Our idea is just to build up a surface to pipe on. It doesn't have to be an exact shape, so we don't necessarily need to use another bag or another tip. The main thing for these is the petals. We're going to flip our tip backwards and we're going to use the fat end for the outside edge of the petals. So we're going to do our same soft arcs. So think pulling in a nice soft arcing shape. But because the outside is going to be that fat end, they're going to feel thick and heavy, and it's going to give us that kind of bulging look of a succulent. And when we do these, we're going to start attached to our mound, pull out, circle around, and we're going to pull up it a little bit. And we'll go over that more when we're actually piping on our cupcakes. And the final little bit is we're going to do some little wedges. So we're just going to hold it straight up and down and squeeze, and that's going to give us these nice little chunky bits that will allow us to finish the centers. For our Aeonium, we're going to use a number 104. We're going to do a little mound with our 21. We're just going to borrow a bag from another cupcake and do the same thing. So just think a nice big dot with our star tip. So it's going to be a little ruffly. We just want to give ourselves a center in which we're going to do these fan-shaped petals on. So think a lot like a soft arc, but instead of just pulling in that gentle motion, we're going to pull out a little bit, up and almost flat across the top and then back. So it's just a slightly different shape. So it'll be kind of almost like a chunky little wedge shape. For our Mammillaria, so this is going to be our big one with the ring of flowers on top, we're going to use mostly our number 21 along with some other star tips. So for the center on this, we're just going to squeeze a nice dot and let it kind of ruffle out. And I'm not going to do it as big as I will on my cupcake here, but that's basically what we're going to do for this one for a center and also for that Aeonium that we talked about earlier. We're also going to do some lines. For these, they're going to connect to our bottom of the cupcake and pull up over the dot. But it's the same basic principle where you want to be gliding right along the surface. And for these, we're just going to taper off the pressure towards the end. We're also going to be making some stars with both this 21 tip in our green and also the 16 in our pink. So for this, just right above the surface, squeeze, let it balloon out nice and full, and then stop and pull away. And we're going to do this on top of our cupcake where all of our lines meet to make it nice and neat looking on the top and kind of give it a finish. But it also provides us a little guide to do our smaller stars with our 16 around it. And that's going to make a nice ring for us. With our number 1 tip and our white, we're going to do a few things. First up, some little spikes. So you want to think about making a dot and then pulling away while you're still squeezing. And this is going to give us the needles on our cactus. And finally, we're going to do some plain dots. So for this, just right above the surface, straight up and down, squeeze. When you finish, stop squeezing and circle around for a nice little finish there. And we'll use these to make centers on our little pink flowers. First up is our Echeveria cupcake. And for this one, we're going to make a little mound in the center with our 127. It doesn't have to be a perfect shape. We just want it to take up some area. And then we're going to start piping our petals or our little lobes or leaves or whatever we want to call these on. But basically what we want to do is start with the tip touching that mound, pull out in that soft arc motion, and as we end, we're going to pull up the side of our mound. So you can see they kind of swoop up a little bit. That gives us space underneath here to start the next one and pull up. And basically we're just going to go all the way around, and when we get to doing the second layer, you're going to start again under the last petal of the first one. We're going to pull up a little bit, but it's just going to be shorter and smaller. So think they're bigger. As you go up, get shorter and smaller, and keep pulling up towards the center. To finish, we're just going to pipe some of those little wedges in there wherever we can get them. It might be 2, it might be 3, whatever works to give us a nice little finish and those nice little chunky bits there in the center. To get started, grab your bag with that kind of ice color green I've got my 127 tip on it, and I just want to start right here in the middle, straight up and down, and I'm just going to squeeze a nice little mound. So just kind of wiggle it back and forth to get it going. And if you need to, you can always add some to the sides, wherever it needs a little extra, so you have something nice to attach to. Our next step is to kind of flip our bag around from how we normally would. So the fat end of the tip is going to be pointing out and making the outer edges of our petals. And I'm going to start, so I'm kind of like facing my mound, and then I'm going to pull out my soft arc and up the side as I go. So just take your time, rotate your cupcake a little bit if you need to, and just pull up. So just that's what it looks like from the side. You can see you get that nice chunky wedge, and it just goes up, and now we've got that little spot there to start the next one. So we're just going to keep going around, trailing off and leaving that little spot right there underneath for us to get under there. And when you go all the way around, it's probably only going to take 4 or 5 petals. It depends a bit on how big you make them, and you can always vary up that size a little bit. For that last one, let's see, just squeeze it in there and finish. And now we're going to start a second row. Just pick a spot so it can be right underneath that last one you did, and go a little smaller. And you might just end up doing one in between each one, or you might have room for 2. And just take the time, clean off your tip in between if you need to, and keep going. Our goal here is just to make it nice and full. So do as many as you need to in between each of those petals from your first round. And if you need to skip a spot, just skip a spot. But you can see how that fills up really nicely. And we're getting to the point where we have a nice little center going. You might do just a few short ones. Same kind of motion, just kind of more upright. And then we've got a nice spot there on the top to finish with some wedges. I'm just going to push my frosting down. And keep going. So just think, nice little wedge, and maybe one more. Just to kind of fill up the center. And I think that's perfect. But you can keep going, put in a few little wedges, whether it's 2, 3, or 4, so that just that top area is kind of taken up space-wise. You're covering up the ends of any of your petals where there's anything that's maybe a little messed up or you ran into something from before, and it'll give you the nice look of a beautiful little Echeveria cupcake. Next up is our Aeonium. And so this one, it's a little bit rose-like. We're going to take our 21 tip just because we have that on hand. You could also use something similar like a 12, and we're going to give ourselves a big dot for a mound in the middle just to start working on. And when we start off, we're going to do our fans really small here in the center, and you can see I've just got them kind of spiraling out. And then we're going to just work out. So think a lot like a rose, where we're going to rotate the angle of the opening of our tip so that it's then going straight up and then pointing out. And for this one, I'm doing a bit of a reverse hold on my bag. And what that means is instead of the tip being back and pulling towards myself, I'm actually going to pull across the front. And that's going to help these petals kind of curve out a little bit for me, which you see here. And we'll explain that a little further while we're demoing. But we're just going to go down the sides until we get all the way to the bottom. And you can see how these kind of pull up and out, and we're just going to do kind of like a last row down here where we're still pulling those kind of fan shapes, but we're just going almost flat against the surface. And that'll give us a nice finished look that goes all the way down to the surface of the cupcake. Our first step for our Aeonium is just to make a nice little mound for ourselves. And I'm just going to use the forest green that I have the 21 tip on because, well, I've got it on hand already and I've got extra. So I'm just going to make myself a nice little mound here. Think just kind of nice and big there in the center. It doesn't have to be a particular shape. We just want something for our frosting to stick on. I grabbed my bag with my kind of olive green and pink stripe, and I'm going to start in with my fans. And I'm holding the tip so it's on the front side of this dot, so between me and the dot. And I'm just going to draw those fan shapes. The top edge of that tip is pointing across that center, so towards the back. And you can see it just makes them kind of lay right across. And it's really natural for me because I'm right-handed, so it kind of kicks up on that back side to then go on this little leading side and kind of go around. So I'm just going to kind of spiral around until I close in and get back to the beginning. Now I'm going to pick a spot and I'm going to go a little bigger. So think drawing a bigger fan, and I'm going to just change the tip. So I'm going, instead of pointing towards the back, it's going to be pointing straight up. And this will start to kind of open that up for us a little bit. You can see it changes the angle. And I'm just going to pipe so that they're overlapping each other. And one of the great things about striping your bag like this is you're going to get a lot of variety in your cupcakes. That first one I piped for a sample has a really prominent stripe, and this one you can see it's just kind of fading a little bit. And you can always go back and reload your bag, which I might do in a second if I get low on frosting. But it gives you some nice color variation in your cupcakes within your set. So I'm just going to go all the way around till I reach the beginning again. So if you need to at this point, you could do a little ring around the bottom of your dot. So just think about piping a little line just right there at the base underneath those petals. I'm just basically giving something for my next row of petals to attach to, and we won't see this when we're done with our cupcake. So now we're going to keep piping petals. And for this row, I'm going to start going the other direction with them a little bit. So piping in the same direction, but layering them on top of each other. The other way. And I'm just going to kind of angle that tip out a tiny touch. And that's really going to start, you can see, curving them out. And they're just going to be a little easier to pipe. Layering them on the other direction. It's a little more natural. And I'm just going to keep going out. And layering on petals until I start to get close to the bottom. And when I do, I'm just going to take it, hold it, so that skinny end of the tip is kind of pointing towards myself, and I'm just going to pipe right against the surface. And so this will help cover up the bottom of the cupcake, so where all of our other petals meet the mound in the middle and meet the surface of the cupcake. And you can just pipe those in there until you've got everything all covered up. Our final style is going to be our Mammillaria. And for this one, we're going to do a really big ruffled dot in the center. So I think you really want to take up a lot of space. You basically just want to leave enough space on the outside edge of your cupcake for those lines we're going to draw on with the 21, and that's going to be our next step. We're going to pick a spot to start right on the surface of the cupcake, draw up and over the top, and when you get to the middle, let the pressure taper off. And basically you want to imagine a center point here and you're pulling all your lines to it. We don't want to overlap them at the top. We want to leave a little bit of void, and if it's a little messy there with the tails in the center, that's fine. When we get all the way around, we're going to put a star on top of it, on top of all those ends, so you don't have to worry about them finishing cleanly. And that star is not only going to cover up where all those ends meet, it's also going to give us guidance for putting our little pink stars on top. So we're just going to go around the outside edge and do a circle of those pink stars on top for ourselves. We'll then switch to our bag of white. We'll do a dot on the center of each of those stars, and I'm going to go down on each of my lines with my 21 tip and just pick a spot and do 4 little spikes. And that's going to give me those nice little kind of spines on my cactus those little thorns and kind of complete the look for ourselves. Our first step is to pipe our dot in the center. And remember, we want to go big with this one. So just start right above the surface. Give ourselves a nice squeeze, really let it balloon out. You can move that tip around a little bit. Even stop in the middle if you need to. And really just let ourselves build up a nice surface to pipe on. Our next step is to draw our lines. So we just want to start down at the bottom, pull up, and taper towards the end. So it doesn't have to be perfect there in the ends. Next one, right next to it. And think pull to the same spot. So don't just kind of line them up. You'll get a little off on it if you do. Think about pulling always to that center point. And just taper off your pressure wherever you need to get them to kind of fit right next to each other. So I'm just going to work around slowly, rotate my cupcake. And pull those nice, just fat, full lines with that 21 tip. Beautiful. Our next step is just to put a star here in the middle. So get yourself really nice and lined up right in the middle. Nice full star. Right there to finish off all those ends. Next up, we're going to grab our bag of pink and we'll go around that star we made in green and finish the top off with a nice little ring of stars. So think about slow, take your time, nest them right next to each other, and just use that center star as guidance to get a nice ring. It's always great if we can give ourselves a little guide when we're piping. That way we don't have to judge space for ourselves and make circles out of nothing. But you can see that gives us a nice little ring there. We're going to finish each of our flowers with a dot. So think right on top, nice little dot. Each of those little pink stars then becomes a cute little pink flower. And our final touch is just to put some spikes on the edges. So just pick a little spot and kind of work down one of those ridges. It'll probably only take like 3 or 4, and I try to keep them evenly spaced as I go around. So I'll do one line, move over to the next line I made with my 21 tip, pick a spot to do them, and just try and kind of line them up with each other. So just pipe right on that ridge. And when you're done, just turn a little bit, put yourself in position to do the next ridge. And this should help your little spikes be kind of evenly spaced because we've got those great lines we made with our 21 tips. So if we're doing a little row of spikes on each one, they should all be kind of equally distanced around our cupcake. So it's a nice way to kind of maybe fudge that spacing a little bit and give yourself a little help. And this step is definitely a little bit extra, but I feel like it pays off detail-wise. But if you're thinking, oh, this is too much, you can definitely leave your little thorns off. Or if you're doing a nice amount, you can always do some with and some without. And that gives you a nice sense of variety to your cupcakes. Can help cut down on your workload on piping as well. But I think it's a fun little detail. It helps all those beautiful lines stand out, and it gives us a nice, beautiful cactus look. That's all for this set of succulent cupcakes. We really hope you enjoyed this lesson, and if you do, try checking out some of our other cupcake sets. We hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It truly supports our channel and helps us share more in-depth cake decorating lessons. Want to level up your skills? Our yearly membership has certificate programs from beginner and up. Learn more at cakedecoratingschool.com.